Hello and welcome to the 44th running of the Boulder Boulder. Every year since its inception in 1979, this race has had some iteration of a professional team or individual championship, and this year's no different. My name is Alan Culpepper. I was fortunate to compete in 2 Olympic Games, and I'm joined by Mr. Frank Shorter, who not only competed in 2 Olympic Games, but also won 2 Olympic medals in those games. And Frank was a part of the founding group. So he was one of the individuals that got with Steve Bosley to say, hey, how can we support elite athletes? And here we are all these years later. Frank, you're still involved. Great to be here with you. And once again, we have the Pro Team Challenge, which is going to start just in about 2 minutes right outside on Folsom Field. Frank, give us a little bit of background on how we got to this point.
Well, we got to this point because Eddie Crowder, the athletic director at CU in 1979, said, why don't you finish in the stadium? So we did, and I was fortunate enough to win that first race. And you see, Alan and I are kind of bookends. I from the start, he's now carrying on through. And what occurred to me today is when people say, well, maybe it's not your father's race or your mother's race or your grandfather's race or your grandmother's race, it's everybody's race. You know, you can't use that description. And once again, the teams have assembled here. They really love coming here. They're treated, I think, as well as anywhere on the planet. And they all run very well. And a lot of altitude-trained athletes.
Absolutely, that's right, Frank. And there you have a live shot of the start line, which is just on the shadow of the stadium on Folsom Field. Those elite athletes are going to be running northbound, opposite direction of the masses that are finishing, coming through Folsom on the opposite side of the road there. And they're going to get that wonderful crowd support as they start. And we're going to give you the full rundown of all these teams that are involved and some of the individuals to watch for. But we have that live shot right now, and we're just about 30 seconds away from the start. And they are off. They're going to be making their way 10,000 meters through the streets of Boulder. Aside from the first 2 kilometers or so, the rest of the course will be the same course that all of you just finished. So they're going to make their way down Folsom and make a few turns and then jump onto the traditional course. And we're going to give you the full rundown of all the teams that are involved. There are 6 women's teams, truly an international field. We have USA Red and USA White. USA Red is made up of Emily Durgin, who is our returning champion from last year. So she really made a bold move with about a mile to go last year, broke away from the pack and was able to take the win. She is back. Excited to have her along with Sarah Hall and Nell Rojas will make up USA Red. USA White is an all CU Boulder alumni team. McKenna Morley, Sarah Vaughn, and Carrie Verdon. So great to have the Buffs represented, all high-level athletes in their own right. We also have Team Kenya. We have an Ethiopian team, which has done historically very well here in Boulder. We have a team from Mexico and a team from Japan. We'll do our best to give you some of the highlights of each individual athlete, what they've done here recently, how they've performed over the years. But this is just an exciting day to have all these athletes take to the streets of Boulder. One thing that is different than when we were out here this morning, Frank, is the temperature has definitely creeped up and the wind has picked up. So it'll be curious to see how that plays into the tactics.
Well, right now, 2 of the Kenya runners have gone to the front. It's Sarah Naibe and Grace Nawawuna, who have taken off. And we saw in the citizens race this morning, the winner took off right from the start and never looked back, and we've had a break in the pack right away, and it's smart to do this because they're going slightly downhill now. And then they'll work their way through the hills and then have another downhill and then a little uphill till 4 miles at Casey Middle School. And if you're ahead at that point, the way they are now, it will be very difficult for anyone to catch them. And the point is they're running together. They're running side by side, and now a little bit of drafting going on. And if you're running as a team, you don't mind this. And the runner in second is actually saving 7% of her energy or more, running this way. And so they've decided to go out hard right from the start.
So just by way of a little bit of backstory, in 1998, race organizers Cliff Bosley and others got together and said, hey, why don't we alter the format of the elite athlete portion? Instead of just an individual race, let's look at a team challenge. And this was really a breakthrough for road racing. No one had done this at the time. So these athletes are not only competing for themselves individually for individual prize money and that all that comes with running in a race individually, but they also are running for their respective countries. And there's 3-person teams, and it works just like those of you that have run cross country in high school. It's team scoring. So each place that you finish counts towards your score. So for instance, first place gets 1 point, second place gets 2 points, and so on. The lowest score wins. So each one of these athletes is racing to represent their countries and to try and really put forth their best effort. It generally speaking comes down to the third runner. And since all 3 count, that third runner is the one that score really makes the difference. And given that there's only 6 teams, those scores are going to be very close together. So that's the breakdown, and prize money goes also largely to the team division. So this $100,000 is up for grab for the men and women, which is a phenomenal prize purse for any road race. And these athletes are really vying for that dominance here today to say who's got the best individuals and who has the best team.
And Grace Nabawuna is really running very easily here and almost waiting for Sarah Naibe. And she looks much better, and she has the fastest 10 kilometers on the roads at sea level coming into this race. She's run under 30 minutes, 29, 47, 42 at sea level. But if you want to compare it, the overall men's winner in the Citizens race this morning was 30 minutes. So she's very, very fit. And you can see, just as I was talking, she's now broken away. It looks like there wasn't a plan to run together. And now she's off. And it really is up to the others to catch her. But she has more basic track speed, I think, than anyone else in the race.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just looking on paper at her times, she's a 14:42 5K runner. And wow, to have an elite athlete run under 30 minutes in the 10K, she's number 8 all time. So 8th fastest of all time in the 10,000 meters. So we knew on paper that Grace was going to be one to watch. It's just you never know how that's going to translate on race day and or at this elevation and on the roads. The track and the roads are just different, and some athletes respond differently on the roads, and they're more adept to the track. So Grace right now is showing that, hey, those times were no fluke, and I'm the real deal. She really just seems like she's just coasting along. We were initially looking for Daisy Kameli of Team Kenya because she was the runner-up last year, and don't see her in that lead pack, obviously, but could be secondary in that secondary pack that's about 15 seconds back.
And Grace is 20 years old. And that's been kind of a pattern recently with international runners, especially a lot of the runners from Africa. They emerge at this age, and they're right at the forefront. So she's 20. She hasn't physically matured yet, and she's running away with this race.
So there you go. They just passed 2K. So now they're back on the traditional course that all of you would be familiar with. They're on Folsom Avenue, heading north. I do see Emily Durgeon back there, our returning champion from last year. Emily had a great, just had a great year last year. Really, what I would consider her breakthrough. She's coming off a strong finish at the Olympic trials in the marathon, which is back in February, where she finished 9th place. Has gone on to run the U.S. 10-mile champs, where she was number 6 all time on that, in winning the first place a couple of months back. So clearly came off the trials well, is running very strong. Came into town yesterday. She trains at altitude, so she's familiar with what it feels like to be at this elevation, and just having that familiarity with the course and familiarity with just how the flow of the route goes, I think is important. And we've seen athletes that have done well in the past previously come back and do well again.
The expression that we used, and I think is still used, is the course likes me. It does. There are just some courses that you can run well on. You're not quite sure why, but you know it likes you. And I think that's what you find when you come to Boulder to run. The people that run well here tend to do it year after year.
We are back looking at third, fourth, and fifth place. They're going up that slight incline. I mean, Frank, this is just already broken away. I'd say most years we still see a pack at this point. To have it already broken up shows that Nawawuna feels really strong and is very comfortable. We will get a better idea of their splits to get a sense of actually how fast they're running, because that'll play into this. If an athlete feels a little antsy and goes out just a little too aggressive, that can really come back to bite you later on at this elevation. And when you factor in that the highest point on the course is around the 4 mile mark. However, again, on paper, she looks extremely dominant and could just walk away from this. And especially the fact that she pulled away this early says to me that she just feels very comfortable.
And it's Saranesh Yurga from Ethiopia, one of the strong women's team from Ethiopia. Again, these runners, she has barely reached maturity as a runner. But again, Emily Durgan, running well, nice and smooth, and as of yet, she has not lost contact. There is kind of an invisible string between you and the runner ahead, and at a certain point, it becomes apparent that that string has broken, that imaginary string, and the runner will fall off. But right now, they're still connected.
So that is Saranesh Yurga from Ethiopia, currently in third place. She was 11th at the Boston Marathon just back in April, and we have seen historically that it's one of two categories. Athletes that run a spring marathon, they are able to carry that residual strength, come to Boulder, and do well at this distance, whereas others we've seen really struggle with recovering from the marathon and then bouncing back and getting in the appropriate training. So it really is athlete specific, but in this case, we do have quite a few that have competed in a spring marathon, including the Boston Marathon just back in April. We will just touch on that our men's race is just about to start. You can see a live shot there on the screen. They are also starting just outside here on Folsom Avenue. They will be taken to the streets on that same course. We have 7 men's teams. We'll give you the full rundown of the men's that are competing and some of the individuals to look out for. But they are just about to start here at 11:23. So, yep, just in about 1 minute, they're going to be starting. Just by way of a quick highlight on the men's side, we do have our returning champion coming back, who is Connor Mance from last year. Those of you that watched that race, was an extremely exciting race. He came from 4th place all the way to 1st within the last half mile of the race and really made for an exciting finish. Connor was our Olympic trials champion in February in the marathon. And he, along with his teammates Clayton Young and Jared Ward, will make up USA Red. So we're excited to have our both returning champions on the men's and women's sides back again this year. Here we are back to the elite women's race. In front, that is number 9, Grace Nawawuna, out of Kenya, 20 years old, a sub 30-minute 10K runner.
There, the men are off.
There we go, men's race has just started. And on the men's side, we do have 7 teams, USA Red and USA White. We have Kenya, Ethiopia, Mexico, Eritrea, and we have a USA Marine Corps team taking part as part of the Memorial Day tribute and all that we have going on and all that they do to support our troops. We have a Marine Corps team that'll be taking part, and they're part of a WCAP program, which is an elite athlete program that the various armed services do. Army, Air Force, and the Marines have various teams training at a high level as part of their active duty.
And right away, Chalo Disu from Ethiopia taking the lead, looking very comfortable. And he's run the fastest marathon in this field. He's run 2:04:53, under 2 hours and 5 minutes. So obviously he's fast and he's altitude trained, but he doesn't seem to be trying to break away as quickly. I think he's just settling into an effort, and he's just seeing how comfortable he is at that effort. He's not really trying to make a gap. He's just seeing how comfortable he can be at the pace he's at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Unlike the women's race, which right from the start we saw a breakaway of the two Kenyan women, the men are still packed together. This is more traditional, where we see a pack form and the athletes kind of get a sense of how they're feeling and how measuring each other and before they really go and try and break away and put themselves in jeopardy. But we see the distinct style of Conner Mantz there in the sunglasses, the bouncy form that is we've come to really know and appreciate. Conner is one of the most versatile athletes from the United States. He's run sub 4-minute mile and a very competitive 10,000 meter. I want to say he was 5th in the trials at the 5,000 meters. And so for him to move up in distance, he's a 2:07 marathoner, and then came out and showcased that the true range by winning the Olympic trials back in February. Off to the left of your screen, you see number 2, and that's Clayton Young. Him and Conner train and work together, and they both train out of Provo, Utah, along with teammate Jared Ward. So all 3 of them went to BYU. They still live and train in Provo. And Conner and Clayton just really set the entire tone for that Olympic trials marathon back in February, and they went 1-2, which is just really amazing. Training partners. So they'll be training for the Paris Olympics.
And again, Disu is now kind of fading a little bit, pulling to the right, to the left side, and he's not cutting, as we say, cutting the tangent. He's not taking the shortest route, really, around that corner. So he's just content to lead, and my feeling is at a certain point, this is not a good thing if you're going to allow that kind of pack to settle in and run behind, because the people running in the middle of that pack are getting even more energy saving than they would be if they were just up on his shoulder.
Nice overhead shot to see the pack of men that are all running now together, again representing their individual aspirations as well as their team dynamic. Some other notables on the men's side to look out for would be Raymond Magat from Kenya. He's one of these that's been running some recent road races here over the spring. Did quite well at the Cherry Blossom, where he was 2nd. Josephat Tu from Kenya, also a 1:02 half marathoner. It's always the question is just, somebody's done well in some of the recent road races, and maybe their overall personal bests are not the most formidable, but they've just been running well as of late. And that's the case for a lot of these athletes that are just on the road racing circuit, and they've added Boulder to their list and really just carrying that fitness that they've seen throughout the spring.
And Conner Mantz is showing a little, well, no, he's settled in. He's number 1, and he's in a very good spot. In this spot, in 3rd place, he's ready. If the runner in front takes off or the runner in 2nd takes off, he's not blocked if he immediately wants to go with him. You can see on the inside and all the turns, making sure no one's blocking him and just kind of waiting, just waiting. But Disu continues to want to lead. Now, again, it's one of two things. He may just suddenly take off and see who goes with him. And my feeling is he might just do that fairly soon. Oh, there he is. He was pacing his teammate. He was pulling his teammate out front, making sure that he was right at the lead. That's very unusual to drop out this early.
Looks like we're getting an update from the course at number 11 from Ethiopia. Goja Yahe on the men's side has just dropped out, which will be devastating, insurmountable from a team perspective. So it sounds like he was grabbing his hamstring. So our early leader has now pulled out. He was grabbing his hamstring. So that
as
really,
well as the men's, Ethiopia.
That's it. That is your team. I mean, the Ethiopian men have really, over the years since 1998, been the most dominant force in terms of the team side of it. So for them to lose one of their teammates is devastating. So it's really going to come down to how they fare individually now. But the team portion for Ethiopia appears to be over, which is unfortunate.
Is to the benefit of the U.S. teams. It really is.
You know, that really just, as soon as they get a glimpse of that, I think some of our athletes will start to take note, like, wait a second, we've lost one, or they even maybe caught him stopping on the corner of his eye. So that will provide some additional motivation for those athletes.
The motivation to run like a cross-country team and stick together, because now you know your chances of winning the team championship or placing in the top 3 have really improved.
So
I
just
think they're in
as
Folsom, going up the hill.
Yeah, they are going up that hill on Folsom. One of the few hills, but enough to where you will feel it. And I see all 3 of our Team USA red in the mix and Team USA white in the mix, along with all 3 Kenyans. And then, as we mentioned, the 2 Ethiopians. And that's Connor Mance there that has made his way to the front.
Yeah, he just looked around. He looked to his right, he looked to his left, and he said, I think I'm going to push here. I think he's pressing the pace. And again, he's finding out how he feels, what effort he can run and feel good. And we're very happy to see this, because Alan and I know he's been slightly injured since his winning the Olympic trials. So this will be a test to see how well he's come back. We talked to him and he said, yeah, it feels okay. But now we're going to find out.
Yeah, that's always the question. Him and training partner Clayton Young shared that they both had some minor setbacks, but they're both very happy with where they are 5 weeks into their 16-week build-up to the Olympics. So that says, when they answer that way, that says, no, this isn't, I'm not, maybe in peak fitness, but I'm exactly where I should be as I prepare for the Olympics.
And
we're
now
going to switch over to the women's.
High school coaches tell their cross-country runners, when you get to the top, the way they are now, use that momentum, use that effort. We'll see if he tries to increase his lead.
So now back to the women's race. We have seen some changes on the women's side with, that looks like, we'll get we have our lead runner who appears to be Nawauna from Kenya still out in front, but it's where the race is really happening, is back 2nd and 3rd place. The women about coming up on 21 minutes. The men just past the 2 mile in under 9:30. So an honest pace, nothing crazy. The fact that the men are all still together says to me that the pace is comfortable, that nobody's really willing to risk going out too hard. As we shared, it's on the warmer side and the breezier side for record-setting type temperatures. It's this morning when it's 55 degrees. Those are the temps that you're really looking for. So full sun, this is not record-setting day, but it's more about the race itself.
And once you get that far ahead, it really is hard to press. And what you try to do is then settle into a slightly slower effort, and then on the turns, look around to see if anyone's gaining on you. And the longer you can still keep a lead with that slightly reduced effort, the more confident you can become. Because these athletes know their paces, they know their times, and they can do the math in their heads. And so they have experience of knowing what kind of effort they can keep to the finish and just how far ahead they have to be. But it's gonna.
So Grace Nawauna has already passed the 4 mile mark. So she's on the downhill just past the Casey Hill, which is the highest point on the course. So she's being able to take advantage of that nice gradual downhill, really open up her stride, making her way towards downtown Boulder. She'll make that left-hand turn here onto Spruce and then over to Pearl Street. Still really just cruising along. There's really you can't even see her competitors in the background. I know the camera angle can be a little deceiving. However, when you can't see the person behind you, that's a good sign that you're
right.
Quite clear.
And again, she's 20 years old. new to the circuit. And as I said, this seems to be a pattern that's been developing amongst athletes from certain countries.
And from some reports we're getting on the course, Nahi Alvarez from Mexico on the women's side is that individual who's up in third place. So it looks like her and Emily Jurgen from the United States are kind of battling for that top 3 position, with Sarah Naibe in second. So that'll be the question is can those that are back in second, third, and fourth, what's going to happen in those placings? It looks to be that first at this point. You never want to call it too early, just because it is, you know, you're still over a mile and a half to go. It's still a long ways to go. And she certainly doesn't look like she's pressing per se, but still looks comfortable.
Well, she's literally out of sight now because they had not covered, the rest of the field had not come down off the hill from Casey and made the turn onto that straightaway. And so when they got on that straightaway, she was always gone. She was totally out of sight.
Yeah, she just made the turn onto Pearl Street. They hadn't seen her already make that turn, which psychologically is a big difference maker. If you can't see the person in front of you, then your inclination to really bear down and start to push to try and close that gap, it's just you don't have that real motivation. So that's why you just don't want to let someone get quite so far ahead in terms of from a tactical standpoint. So she's well clear, and I don't really see much changing there. The question will be back there. You can see just in the feint in the background is our second place finisher at the time currently.
And it's still a race for second and third all the way through to 10th. But at this point, they're racing for those positions. They know for them the race to win is over. And now, very often, it'll slow down as they become more and more competitive. But at a certain point, someone has to surge, try to get away in the second pack.
And I do see this distinctive style of Emily Jurgen back there really battling for that second place with Sarah Naibe and Alvarez from Mexico. So it looks like that's going to be the race.
Now Conner Mantz is still out in front. I think at a certain point he might just want to let someone from behind take the lead, but here we go. Just as I say, this is what they call a surge.
That's Sam Chilenga, also from the United States.
Yes, and this is for real.
Oh, I see. He was surging there to get to the water station,
yeah.
Which if they're taking water in a 10K at this race, it's because it's warm. Generally speaking, they're other than just dumping a little on their head. So they must be feeling the temperature slightly, but that's Sam Chilenga of USA White who surged to the front and decided that he wanted to make sure he did not miss that water station. And sometimes, Frank, as you know, in these races, a water stop can make the difference. That can just break up the race just a little bit. So we'll see if the men pack back up or if that created just a little bit of separation. Clayton Young still hanging on just to the back of that pack. He's just those 2 steps off the back, along with Reed Fisher out of Boulder, who got the call earlier this week that, hey Reed, we've had another athlete pull out, and we'd love to have you step in. And one of those athletes that just such a great addition to a race like this, who knows the course, lives in Boulder, trains on these streets.
5K.
Women at past 5 miles, the men are at 5K. So the women are just going to be making their turn onto Folsom here shortly, whereas the men halfway through, we still have a pack of it looks to be like 9 guys to me. That's right, with 3 USA. I don't see Jared Ward, so that's Jared Ward, who is on USA Red, is not in that lead pack. But USA Red does have Conner Mantz and Clayton Young in there, whereas USA White with Sam Chilenga, Bia Sambasa, and Reed Fisher, all 3 in that top pack, with Sam Chilenga leading right now in the white uniform.
Sam Chilenga is the real deal. 39 years old, and here he is leading the Boulder. But if you look back at his history, 10 years ago, he ran one of the fastest 5,000 meters that you can run. And yet here he is still 10 years later, and his marathon best last year, he ran under 2 hours and 9 minutes. So he's maintained a level of fitness, I think, longer than just about anybody I've ever seen or heard of.
Absolutely. So 3 USA white looks to be strong. The question mark will be Jared Ward and how his placing factors in. USA white is the one that has all 3 in the top pack right now. All 3 Kenyans are in that lead pack. We did have the one Ethiopian drop out, so that dramatically affects their team score, unable to win that. And we will catch up with the men's race a little bit later, but we're going to go back to the women's as they are on Folsom. 28 minutes in, a couple of minutes now. They're about to the last kilometer where they'll be crossing over there by family student housing and making that turn up the hill to come into the stadium.
Yeah, once you get past Boulder Creek, you know you're really on your way home. And I doubt she's even looked back recently.
I agree, Frank. I doubt it. I don't think she has made any glimpse whatsoever. So that is Yurga in second, who has some separation. Siranesh Yurga out of Ethiopia in second place. So we didn't see what happened with Sarah Naibe from Kenya to see how that transition happened from the top 3. But Yurga now in second. Emily Durgin looks to be in third, but closely followed by another athlete. So we'll have to get a sense of who that is that she's competing with for that third spot. It may be Anahe Alvarez from Mexico. Okay, so we are gearing up for this finish for our first female who will be making her way into this stadium. We want to give her that welcome that has now become just renowned with Folsom Field and with what these athletes say every year. Like, if that roar of coming into that stadium, unlike any other finish in any other race that's outside of an Olympic or World Championships, this is really what makes this race super special. So we're going to want to give her that reward when she gets here. That is Grace Nawawuna out of Kenya. In second place right now, Siranesh Yurga, and then battling for third, Emily Durgin out of the United States, our defended champion, and Anahi Alvarez from Mexico. That's your top 3 as of right now. Before we go to the women's finish, we do have the men are on Casey Hill by Casey Middle School. So they are cresting, just about to crest the highest point of elevation at 4 mile mark. 53.91 of feet above elevation. They'll have that nice downhill. This is where Connor Mance kind of made a tactical mistake last year and let the field go and then had to work really hard to catch back up. He said in all candidness, I didn't think I was going to be able to catch him. I was really just trying to protect fourth place. He's just out there grinding it out in front. There is quite a few that are just drafting off him, Frank, so I'll be curious to see if that catches up with him later. But the pack does have to strung out just enough. So I think he is making it honest enough to where these athletes are having to work.
He's surging. Right now he's surging because you can see people are starting to drift out of the back. And he's just a little bit ahead, and it's just a question of who responds to the surge.
Okay, so just to get yourselves ready, Grace Nawawuna out of Kenya, 20 years young, one of the top 10 all-time performers in the 10,000 meter, will be coming down this ramp momentarily. We don't have eyes on her, but she will be just about to come into the stadium. Here we go.
Wire to wire.
your 2024 Boulder International Team Challenge champion, Grace Nawawuna from Kenya. And in second, Siranesh Yurga out of Ethiopia. In second place, making that right-hand turn. And that looks to be out of Mexico, Anahi Alvarez, who has made her way into third, followed closely by Emily Durgin from the United States. Alvarez with a strong finish that last kilometer to break away from our returning champion, but a very strong finish by Emily Durgin from the United States. And now we'll do our best to get a sense of all the other athletes coming in and keep a track of those team titles. That's Carrie Verdon.
Team.
McKenna Morley from USA, that's a CU alumni right there, followed by Carrie Verdon, also a CU alumni. So there's second place from last year, Daisy Kameli out of Kenya.
This may be the third Kenyan runner. It seems that maybe the team championships is theirs. Because the American women, they were from two teams.
Correct, and this is Sarah Hall. Sarah Hall, five-time Olympic trials qualifier, one of America's great Masters American record holder in the marathon. So she's on Team USA Red. And here we have Nell Rojas. If you recognize that name, her dad was the winner of the very first Boulder. It's great to have Nell out here. She's also on Team USA Red, rounding out their team score. That's Yoshikawa out of Japan.
Carrying on a Japanese tradition it's become now, of especially their women's teams, moving here to Boulder. Often they live up in Nederland, come down to train, and they've had much success over the years. Japanese women Olympic marathon medalists have come from Boulder.
And that's Awok from Ethiopia. Hiroshima from Japan. Sarah Vaughn, also a CU alumni. Team USA. Margarita Hernandez Flores from Mexico. And Isabel Vasquez from Mexico. We will get back to the men's race here momentarily. We've heard that there is a pack of 5 that is now broken away, so that pack that was 9 is now down to 5. Connor Mance still in the lead, pushing that group, along with Bia Sambasa from the United States, Sam Chilinga, Ruben Mossip from Kenya. And And a name we have not talked about today, Frank, is Yemin Haile Selassie from Eritrea.
Yes.
So Yemin is a distinctive runner. He's done quite well at the Olympics, where he was fifth place in the Olympics back in 2020. In 2022, he was 7th in the world in the steeplechase at the World Championships. So the steeplechase with the hurdle barriers, a 3,000 meter distance, does not necessarily always translate to the 10K on the roads. But he's training up in Flagstaff, Arizona with some of his countrymen. And so he's one of the few athletes, along with Baisa Frere from the United States, who have come down in elevation. Flagstaff is about 7,000 feet, coming down to this elevation for their training. So he is really, from an international experience standpoint, he is certainly one to watch. So we'll see how he fares over these last mile and a half now.
And they're stretching out a little, which to me means Conner Mantz is really pushing it now. And he's led the entire way, so he has to get away from these guys.
And mark that, they are already on Folsom by family student housing. We're at 27 minutes in, so they're within the last kilometer. So that's Conner Mantz, Sam Chalenga. Haile Selassie is there in third with the sunglasses. That's Simbasa, the taller athlete from the United States also. And Josephat Tu from Kenya is rounding out the top 5. So they're just about to cross Boulder Creek. This is going to be close, folks. We rarely see this many athletes this close together at this point in the Boulder at 10 kilometers. And you see Conner is trying to get just that little gap. You see that little bit of closure, but this is Selassie from Eritrea who just closed it up. So that shows his track credentials, that he's going to have that next level. So those two have just started to make a little break from Sam Chalenga.
Oh, here we go.
Haile Selassie out of Eritrea is now decided he's going to see what Conner has. This last 400 meters, that's 6 miles right there. Well, unlike last year where Conner was the one making the chase, this year he's having to respond, and they're coming in the stadium together. Conner Mantz from the United States. Yemin Haile Selassie from Eritrea.
He's gonna win it.
This is your returning champion, Conner Mantz from the United States, a 2024 Olympian, is going to repeat as the 2024 champion. Haile Selassie from Eritrea in second, and Sam Chalenga from the United States in third.
And the USA white team may be ahead of the red team.
Simbasa right there for the United States. Ethiopia, there's Clayton Young from the United States and Reed Fisher from the United States.
That was one of the hardest, toughest performances in a 10K I have seen. It's in
one
my
of the
top
closest
5.
finishes we've ever seen at the Boulder
Wire
Boulder.
to wire. Has anyone ever led the Boulder wire to wire?
Raymond Magat from Kenya. So we will do our best to get your team scores as we go through the data to figure out how that lines up, which will take us a bit of time here, but looks to be that USA will be on the men's side.
The lull here, I have to point out to everyone watching that Conner Mantz, I think, to the second, ran the time that you ran when you won this race, and he wasn't even paying attention.
No, I was caught up in the moment, Frank. That was exciting. This is just so appreciative that you all come and stay and take part in this great event and really support these athletes. It really does make a difference, and they really appreciate it. This is Jared Ward from the United States rounding out USA Team White. Team Red, rather. Well, thank you all for joining us for another amazing Pro Team Challenge. Once again, race director Cliff Bosley, along with the elite athlete coordinators, have put together an international field. And man, that was great. That was so fun to watch them come into the stadium. Two distinctive races. The men were quite different from the women. The women broke it away early with our Kenyan women winner, but just to see that men's finish was really dynamic and showcases what this sport is all about, which is true competition.
And he didn't just rise to the top immediately. He was talking with us 2 days ago, and he's been a little hurt, but he also had stories of how over about a 4-year period, he just couldn't crack the winner's circle. He'd finish 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then something happened, some spark, and it just has to do if you hang on long enough and focus on your training long enough and stay injury-free long enough, you can really rise to the top. He wasn't a comet. He rose slowly, methodically, and now the best he's ever run in his life.
Well, it's been great being with you here again, Frank. All of you, please stick around for the Memorial Day celebration. Lots more to come, amazing things in front of us. Thank you again, and we'll see you next year.